Ready?
All
Okay.
right, thanks for joining everyone with the Sabres Connie Mack Dick Allen chapter. With us tonight is Mike Gimbel.
Yeah.
Mike was a pioneer in the statistical analysis of Major League Baseball player and team performance, and he'll present his latest in-depth 2023 season analysis and evaluations for the upcoming 2024 season. Mike was an advisor for several years, from 1991 to 97, to the general managers of the Montreal Expos and the Boston Red Sox. While praising the tremendous advances over the last 3 decades in player performance evaluations, as well as the invaluable in-game advances, Mike Gimbel is highly critical of the overall player evaluation process, especially as it applies to the problems created by WAR ratings. This is a virtual presentation conducted on March 27th, 2024. Mike, the stage is yours.
Okay. Thank you. We have on the screen the team evaluation. This side of the screen that you see is the hitters. When I go to the pitcher side for each team, I'll slide the screen to the right, and you'll see that the pitcher evaluation. Now, when you in understanding this screen, there is a dividing line right here. This black line, this vertical line. On the left side is just a cut and paste from Baseball Reference for all their so you can see each player with their basic numbers. However, my analysis, my software, the results are here on the right side of that black line, and the first is the outs based on how my software analyzed it. Outs surrendered by these hitters. The hitting production is next, either plus or minus in terms of runs above the median. Likewise for the defense, plus or minus in terms of runs. They add together for the run value of the player for the year. The runs you see here is just a totalization in the software of the runs that creates the values of RPA and RPO. They're the same numbers, just the visor is different. This is by plate appearance, and this is by outs. And I find the outs may be slightly better, more accurate, the run production per out. So that, and when we look at this Arizona's team here, we can see that their hitting was pretty average, maybe slightly below average, but a tremendous defensive team with the top two defensive players being Alec Thomas in center field and their catcher Gabriel Moreno, both well over 7 runs to the plus. And so that Thomas was not a good hitter, but he more than made up for it with his great defense. So you see three players here in the green. Those whether it's pitchers or hitters, when they're in the green, they accumulated more than 10 runs, double-digit run production for their team. In the orange, these players also produced for their team, but less than 10. The white is for loss runs for their team. And if there were double-digit, they would be in the blue down here, double-digit losing. Overall, the team here is almost 13 runs to the good on offense, between offense and defense. Now, when we look over to the pitcher side, again, you have the same situation where you have a left side, which is really baseball reference numbers, cut and paste, and this side is where my software numbers are. Again, the outs, the RPO, the RPA, the runs, and now the run value. You see here, you have 3 pitchers who are all in double digits for the Diamondbacks. Several which are plus, a whole long group that are in the negative, and 1 double-digit negative, Brandon Pfaadt, who had a terrible year. Overall, they were 12.25 runs down as a pitcher, and you see that they're about a half run to the plus between you add the two together. So this is an 81 or 82 win team. It should be. They won 84. It's about right for what they were expected to do based on the numbers they put up. Here's Atlanta. The Atlanta Braves won 104 games. And if you go, and when you look at it, they had like 5 players with enormous numbers, well up. Acuna with over 53 runs. Remarkably, he only narrowly beat out Mookie Betts in my numbers as MVP. It was a remarkable season. Matt Olson was tremendous too. This is a tremendous offensive team, and that's an incredible number, 159 runs to the plus. But when you get over to the pitchers, interesting. Yes, they had 2 double-digit winners, but they're not huge past the top, past 10. Let me tell you about this line right here. Why is this line here about under the 3.92? Well, that means that these five pitchers were in the study of how hitters hit against the premier pitchers. And the 3.86 was the dividing line between premier pitchers and non. And so in my study, which when I show you on the player performance, the only at-bats that they had that will be in that study were against the premiers. In other words, only against these top pitchers, and see how they did against the top pitchers. Okay, but when you take a look at Atlanta's total pitching staff, barely above average pitching. So a totally unbalanced team, a team with phenomenal offensive players, but only somewhat above average in terms of, so according to the total 168, they should have won even more games than 104. But the fact is, when you look at the unbalanced, but the pitching staff, that kept them from going higher, in my opinion. And in fact, you see at the top of the screen, it's all starting pitchers on the 1, 2, 3, and 4. Teams that don't have a powerful bullpen tend to underperform. Teams with a powerful bullpen tend to overperform. That's what I've been seeing. So that you get the big lead, but your bullpen doesn't hold it. I know. I'm sure Philadelphia fans know that well. And coming into this next season, I don't see the Philadelphia team having a great bullpen this year either. Great pitching staff overall, but anyways, let's go to the Cubs next. You see the hitters, Bellinger and Ian Happ in double figures, and you see a plus, a modest plus 17.5 runs on offense. You go over to the pitching staff, over so everybody can see. Again, 2 players in the Premier Group, Steele and Stroman. I think Stroman is a great pickup for the Yankees. He's always underrated because he's not a big fantasy players focusing on strikeouts. I focus in on quality, and Marcus Stroman's been a quality pitcher for quite a while. Yeah, that was a big pickup for the Yankees. And the overall for the pitching, they're plus 29 runs, so they're plus about 47 runs over. So it should be about a 90 win team. They were a little bit under. They were under that at 83. This team could have easily won 90. Okay. Their bullpen wasn't that great, as you're aware. Okay. Here's Cincinnati Reds. Here's too bad that they've lost Matt McClain, probably for most of the year, if not all the year, that he had just had surgery today. Great young player, and it's unfortunate. So you have these three players. Friedel also injured himself during spring training. So I mean, that's really bad luck. Okay, their offense overall just 2.5 runs to the plus. And as far as their pitching goes, let me go over so nobody's blocked. Okay, okay. Again, they have nobody in double digit on their pitching staff. A lot of good pitchers. You have these 6 players who are in the premier study against the good hitters, against the hitters. The one terrible Luke Weaver had a disastrous year, and their overall pitching staff down 43 runs. So this is a team that should have won only about 75 games or so. They managed to do better. Their top 2 pitchers were relief pitchers, so that may have made up some of the difference. And the Rockies, Nolan Jones is going to be a great player. He came up, he missed the first part of the season, but didn't matter. Phenomenal performance, but they're not very deep team. They had these 2 terrible performances in Profar and Castro during the year, minus 62 runs essentially on offense. It just horrendous. And we go to move it over as again, nothing but relief pitchers at the top. Only these top 3 pitchers are in the study of the good hitters. Connor Siebold was awful and minus 76. Whether you looked at the offense or defense, it was just an unbelievably horrendous team. It should have been around they should have been about a 53 win team, but all their top 4 pitchers were relievers. So at least when they got a lead, they could hold it. So although that's not that much overperforming, but it should have been around 53 wins instead of 59. Really bad team. Okay, we go to the Dodgers. Okay, again, there's Mookie Betts, almost as high as Acuna in his run value. And you see Freeman, Muncy, and JD Martinez in the double. But you had 2 players dragging them down at the bottom, Austin Barnes and Miguel Rojas. Simply awful performances. And you go to the other side, yeah, you have, just move it over, paint it over. Okay, you have only Graterol and Kershaw in double digits, although you have about these 3 players who are very close to double digit. And they have actually 7 pitchers that were in the test of the hitters against the premier pitchers. And on the bottom, they had 2 pitchers who were absolutely horrible, that Gavin Stone and Noah Syndergaard. Their overall pitching was not that strong. It's only 16.5 runs. The hitting was their strength, 100 and about 112. So they were figured to be about 102, 103 win team. They won 100. Okay, so they're pretty close to what they should have been. Miami Marlins. No double digits, although 3 players came very close. Chisholm, Soler, and Arias came close, but 4 players enormously down. Stallings, Wendell, Fortes, and Segura. The 2 catchers combined almost 29 runs down. So the team's offense, 58 runs down on offense, not good. Okay, so we moved to pitching. They had two double-digit pluses, even though people think that Alcantara had a terrible. He had a good year. It wasn't great like before, but he's a double 11 runs, and Tanner Scott was almost 14 runs to the good. And they had 6 pitchers in the premier test. And their overall pitching was good. 14, about 14 and a half runs. Their uh, so they were bound down around 43, so about 8 down. This should have been a losing team. It should have been a losing team. I don't know how they won 84 games. With that offense, they should have no in the mid 70s at best. But baseball is funny that way. Wait till you get to Washington; it'll be even funnier. No way they should have won 71 games. But anyways, there was a weird. National League was kind of weird this year. Milwaukee, okay, Milwaukee. Their top hitter had a real good season, Yelich, but not a lot of power in here. A lot of losing, and Terang was very bad, and overall, this was 46 runs down team on offense. Amazing. And we go to the pitching staff, and it's 30 runs up. That's what their strength was. Total 3 tremendous pitchers, and 2 more almost made it into the 10, and a total of 8 pitchers in the study against the hitters. Only one double-digit losing, which is Eric Lauer down here. Overall, again, this should only have been about a 78, 79 win team. Because the offense was so poor. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But hey, this National League was kind of way off this year in a lot of different ways. Okay, the Mets. The Mets, as usual, Nimmo is number. Everybody thinks that Pete Alonso and Lindor, they're big stars. Really, every year I can tell everybody Nimmo's their top player, and he did that again this year. They had 2 players who just were awful this year: Starling Marte and Brett Beatty. And Beatty's going to start out as their third baseman this year. I wish them luck. This is a -14 on offense, really dragged down down here. And on the pitching staff, we have 2 premier pitchers of Senga and Verlander, and 5 pitchers in the premier test. 1 pitcher, Carrasco, was simply awful, and they're 14 runs to the plus. Exactly, should have been an 81 win team. They won 75. Should have been a 500 team. Not that far off, but still, should have been an 81 win team. Philly. Okay, 3 players in the double digit, especially Schwarber, over 27 runs. Harper and Brandon Marsh. All these hitters are in the plus. And this is your negatives. This is Castellanos. And here's an interesting thing. Oh, he was plus. He was so terrible last year. He was like one of the worst players in the majors. Look, he rebounded. He even placed 23rd on the MVP coding. Sorry, this was a poor year too. This rebound, because he's at the position where you have the Acuna, Betts, Judge, so on. He was 19th this year at that position in terms of this runs. In other words, 18 out of the 30 right fielders in the major leagues were better than him. He was only better than 11 of them. And that's only for 1 year. If you take the 3-year averaging, he's 26th. He's better only than 4 starters. He's worse than 25 of the starter at his position in baseball. So yes, he had a plus year. No, he didn't. It's when I'm evaluating the team, yes. But when you're evaluating position by position, at his position, you compare him to other players at his position. And he is still, how he got any votes in the MVP is a testament to how the illusions people have about player performance. Now we go over, so the total is 35.5 runs plus on offense. Now we go to the pitching. And okay, you have one double digit, Zach Wheeler, Taiwan Walker was close, several others. You have seven pitchers in the premier group, Seven or more part of the test. Not a single pitcher was a double digit negative. They're plus 34 runs here. This is a plus almost 70 runs. This is a team that underperformed. It should have been a 95 win team. But the team is heavily dependent on its starters. Relief pitching was terrible. You had Hoffman, Strawman, Soto were decent. We're pretty good. But overall, this team should have been 95 win team. But they really missed, especially in the playoffs, Rhys Hoskins, one of the top hitters, as I showed you last year, in all of Major League Baseball against premier hitters, against premier pitchers. I think he would maybe top 5 in all of baseball. And so why you didn't re-sign him? Well, that's when you have some holes in your lineup, that's a problem. Anyways, when you have that kind of a hitter against top pitching, you want to hold on to him. Okay, the Pirates happened to win 76 games. If you remember that great start, then they hit their level and they lost badly the rest of the way. But anyways, they one in double digit, Jack Sawinski, one almost, and Jared Torriello came up after in the midseason, I believe. And two terrible, Henry Davis and Austin Hedges. So overall, down 32 runs on offense. And let's move it on over. And down 29 runs on the pitching side. No double digit, although these 3 relievers, 1, 2, 3 relievers, are their tops. They have no starters anywhere near the top. This was a team totally dependent on their relief pitching, and that's why they have a little bit better record than they should have. They're down 61. They should have been 69, 70 win team. 170, they won 76. So anyways, it helps to have Tampa Bay showed you how you can not have a great team, but if you have a loaded with relievers, good relievers, you will win more than you would expect to. St. Louis, 3 double-digit hitters, Goldschmidt, Gorman, and Nootbaar, but only 3 others even in positive. And Burleson, the DH of all people, down -12. A DH -12. I mean, that's really, you could see that as the catcher, but a DH at -12 runs. Overall, -17 on offense. And on the pitching, no double-digit pitchers. Although if you took Montgomery for both his teams, he would be double-digit. But this is just his numbers for St. Louis. So, and there's 6 of their pitchers made it into the premier group. 2 pitchers, including Wainwright in his last season got hammered in and their overall pitching was -8. So this is a team that should have won 75, 76 games. They won 71. San Diego, talk about an underperforming team. Look at the two double digits, Soto and Kim, and only one terrible hitter in Austin Nola at -10. Overall, a plus 21 3/4 runs. And you go over here to the pitching staff. Okay. Only Blake Snell in double digit. I put the wrong color there. Ooh, that's supposed to be green, folks. You'll have to pardon me. Okay, 7 pitchers in the premier grouping in the test and 43 runs plus. This is a team that should have won about 94 games. I mean, it is really, they are very top heavy in their starting pitching. Perhaps it's their relievers, they don't have enough. I don't know. But this is a team that should have been in the playoffs, not Arizona. And they could have done stuff. This is a team that should have won maybe 94, 95 games. They only won 82. You look at the players on their team. Then we come to San Francisco, which I am told people are very excited for San Francisco in the coming season. They'll be better, but I don't see much that's here. As you can see here on offense, there's not a single, even though there's 3 players pretty close to double digit, there's nobody to carry the team on offense. They have 3 players who were really awful at the bottom, and they were 58 runs down on offense. 58. How do you make up for that? I don't know what the excitement is. Who's their hitters? Who's going to carry this team offensively?
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the yellow shading I've seen on many of the teams, like in the middle here, Bryce?
Oh, no. When I copied, this is from Baseball Reference.
Right. Oh,
when I go to when I click on Baseball Reference, sometimes it puts a shadow on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and so when I cut and paste, the shadow carried over. Okay, that's all that is. It has no significance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I remind you, this stuff is just the cut and paste stuff over here. This is what counts. This area is where the software is the results of my software. This, and that goes for the pitching side as well. So they're 58 runs down on offense. They're not going to, I don't see how they make up for that in the coming season. With what? Okay. So they add Chapman on this side. They add Snell on this side. They're already super powerful on the pitching side. They had Logan Webb, tremendous. They have 5 people in the premier study. Almost very few pitchers in the negative at all. So plus 52 runs on pitchers, and they added to that this year. So this is a pitching staff, strong pitching staff that they added on to in a pitching ballpark. The ballpark is a strong pitcher's ballpark, but between the two, this is last year was an 80-win team. So this is exactly on right. Yeah, this, if you see it's down 6 runs. 79-80 win team, 179. Now we come to the weirdest one, yeah, to me, because there's no way this team could have won 71, and yet, but their top pitchers were all relievers, so that's a part of the explanation. They only have 1 player in double digits, Lane Thomas. Only 4 others in the overall in the plus. 1 in the double negative, but overall a -54. Although look at the San Francisco is a worse worst hitting team, minus 58, but minus 54 is terrible. Okay. And but look at this pitching staff. They have no starters. Every single starter is in the negative. The best, Josiah Gray, is just down 143. But look at this, all this pitching, all negative, two of them in double negative, one of them in almost like 23 runs down for one pitcher. But all their pitchers up here are relievers, two of which were in the study. Okay, Hunter Harvey and Roberto Garcia. All this is closers, is relief pitchers. So once they got a lead, at least they had a bullpen to hold the lead. Okay, so so they won 71, but there's no way. This is a team that should have won only maybe 56, 57 games. This is, but I guess, but relieving makes a big difference. Let me now go to the American League. I have to switch to 967. Yeah. Okay, there we are, Baltimore. Okay, now we do Baltimore. Baltimore is a very interesting team. This is a team that won 101 games, but I'll show you that Baltimore should have been the huge underdog versus Texas going into those playoffs, despite their record. The record was very much an illusion. Okay, they had three players in the green, double digits, and a number of players in the orange, and none in the terrible. Overall, almost 30 runs, 29 3/4 runs to the plus side. And on the pitcher side, they have one double digit, Kyle Bradish. I think he should be back in April, I think, with 20 runs. Yennier Cano and Felix Bautista were terrific out of the bullpen. Baker, see, the other three pitchers are all relievers here, giving them a better record. All this is relievers underneath Bradish, and no double-digit losers. So the pitching staff is plus 23 runs. This is a 53 run. This is a team that should have won 91 or 92 wins last year. They overperformed at 101, and you're going to see the exact opposite with Texas. Texas record was misleading in the opposite direction, and you see why they should have been heavy favorites against Baltimore in that playoff, despite being the wild card. Next, we have the Boston Red Sox. Oops, oh, stop. Okay. They have only one double digit. It was Tristan Casas, the first baseman, plus two others are very close. Duval went back to Atlanta, and Devers. Only one double digit negative. It was Kike Hernandez. Overall, the team on offense minus 14 runs. When you go over to the pitching staff, you have 4 pitchers in the premier study, but nobody in double digits, and only one in the double negative with Corey Kluber. Overall, minus 20. So this is a minus, should have been about 74, 75 win team, 178. So pretty close. Now we move over to the possibly this coming year, the worst team in baseball, Chicago White Sox. I think they're really trying hard to get the top draft picks because this is just a terrible team. They have one player in double digits. Feel sorry for him on this team. Also, Berger is close to it, but only just 4 players in the plus. They have 4 guys in double-digit negatives. It just, and Timmy Anderson, I mean, what kind of a year was that? Minus 25 runs. He was just incredibly, maybe the worst player in baseball last year. Now we go over, there's 94 runs down on offense. 94 runs. That's more than one. That was just unbelievable to be that bad offense. You have to really try. And on pitching, no premier pitchers. You have two in the premier study. Santos and Shaw, two pitchers who were just awful. Lance Lynn and Michael Kopech. Overall, 51 runs down. This is 140. This is a team that should have won about 52. They overperformed at 61. 52 wins is about where they should have been, 52, 53 maybe. Again, their top three pitchers were all their bullpen. But they did have some pitching in the starting, so slightly in the plus, but and each year they get worse. Okay, now we go to the Cleveland Guardians. Again, one player, Jose Ramirez, in the doubles, the digits, five others in plus, but three players in awful Straw, Gallagher, and Ahmed Rosario. Overall for the team, down 41 runs on offense. And then you have on pitching, one double digit, but he's now in Tampa Bay. Had a down end of the season, so I'm not sure where he is. But for the season, he was double digit, Aaron Savali, and three others were in the premier group for the study. And only one pitcher in the double digit negative, as he was for the Dodgers too. He managed to do double digit twice. Noah Syndergaard. Now I think that's hard to do, to be double digit on two different teams equally. And 21 runs down, 62. This is again a 69-70 win team. Managed to win 76 games. This is not a good team. Detroit. No premier hitters, but a number of hitters that were released in the positive. But the three who were in the negative, headed up by Javier Baez being the worst. So it's minus 58 runs on offense. However, and this is a sleeper team coming season, in my opinion, they've been improving everywhere, especially they have five double-digit pitchers, and you can see three of them are starters. Then the next three include starters as well. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 starting pitchers for Detroit, all in this premier study. That's they have a tremendous basis for, and they have good relieving pitchers as well. Very, very good relief. Holton, Foley, Vest, Lang. I mean, they're deep in the. This may be about the deepest team almost around in the coming season in terms of pitching. This is a very interesting team to watch. They had one pitcher who was really awful in Joey Wentz last year, dragging them down, but it's a plus 34. So this is a team that should have won 76, 77 games last year. They won 78, right on the mark, essentially. Okay, so we now come to the Houston Astros, the Bugaboo, the team that always everybody's worried about in the American League, or even once you get the World Series. Okay, you have these five double digits, including two really tremendous ones at the top, hitters, plus one is almost in and more, only one player, and they got rid of him, Martin Maldonado, and they were replacing him with Yainer Diaz. In an impartial season, he was in the double digits. Yeah, their catcher was double digit plus, and he wasn't in the full season. So he's going to be even stronger for them this year. So that portion is strengthened. This is gone. And even with that in there, they were almost 75 runs to the plus on offense. A tremendous offensive team. Now we go to the pitching staff. But the pitching there, their weakness, slightly below average pitching. Not a single pitcher in double digit, or two almost made it. Brian Abreu and Framber Valdez. But overall, so this is an unbalanced team, a very unbalanced team. They should have won about 95 games as well. They won 90, but you can see why they may have been lower, not meant their, they should have gotten to 95, but it's all on one side. It's not on the other side. Their pitching did not hold up their end. Okay, Kansas City Royals, another one of these teams vying for the first draft choice. Okay, not a single hitter in the double digits, and but only one in negative double digits, and that was Salvador Perez. That's just his day is yesterday, not today. He's fading. Yeah, at least that was my impression from what the analysis shows. And on the pitcher side, only two pitchers merited the premier study, and only one of them made it into the double digit plus. Cole Reagans, who looks really good, and you have a team with a minus 29 on the pitching side, not as bad as the hitting. So this is a 64 win team, but managed to only win 56. Well, I don't see a lot of strength out of the bullpen. The closer's all the way down. He's a negative. Anyways, that's a bad team. Should have won only about 56 games. Angels, team with two Babe Ruths, and one of the Babe Ruths is pitching also, and they can never win 81 games. They can't play 500 ball. So now they don't have Ohtani either. But again, we look at their two pluses, Ohtani and Trout, plus double digit Trout, and no negative double digit. So overall, because of the two players at the top, they're plus 3 runs. At least they should be over 500, at least from that side of the board. However, we go to the other side of the board. We have only one double digit, same guy, Shohei Ohtani at 1220. So his combined is almost 60 runs. It's even better in value than Acuna had this season. But nobody else than him was in the premier study. Nobody met 3.86 runs. So these are all on the positive, but none of them were in the premier group in terms of actual performance. And in the negative, there was none, but they were down 35 runs on the pitching staff. So this team should have been around a 74, 75 win team. They won 73, so it's right about right there. Okay, now we go to the Twinkies. And this team, I really like this team. Coming to this season, this is a real team that's going to, I think, is ready to explode, to be amongst the top teams in baseball. They have 4 players in double digits, and these 2 guys were partial season guys, and Lewis was out for injury. So you see these three double-digit guys are all coming back to play full seasons this year, and they're already a partial season in double digit. that is a really good thing for them for coming on the season. Unfortunately, Correa had a horrible season last year, and they had Vasquez also had a terrible season. But still, so they're almost 38 runs to the plus on offense. You look on pitching, look how strong they are in pitching. 3 double-digit pitchers, one more almost in, 7 pitchers in the premier group study, no double negatives, and 44 runs to the plus. So this is a team that should have won about 97 last year. This is a team that way underperformed. Their strength, of course, was at the top with 3 starting pitchers out of the top 4. And even one more, 4 down, the 4th one down here, also in the plus. So this is top heavy in terms of the starting pitchers. Maybe that's part of the reason, but in any case, this is a sleeper team. They should have won around 97 games last year, and you have those 3 players who missed a lot of last year, going to be here for the full season. That's going to make them much better in the coming season. And if Correa bounces back, look out. This team has the makings of a team that you'll have to deal with for a few years. The Yankees. It's Aaron Judd and, well, there's Glaber. That's about it. Dominguez came up at the end, had a few at bats, was spectacular, but he's injured. He may not come back until late in August or something. They had nobody, no hitting. There's a minus almost 39 and a half runs on offense. This is a really terrible hitting team, depending on essentially one player. But now they got Soto. So now they're depending on 2 players. And Glaber as well. Well, they picked up John Berti. I think that was a good pick, a good guy. That'll help them out. So we now look at the pitching staff. Tremendous pitching staff, led by Cole, who's injured, Michael King, who's with San Diego, and Ian Hamilton, a reliever. The next up is Clay Holmes, also a reliever. Their double-digit negative is Severino. Who knows if he'll rebound for the Mets or not? But if this is what he produces for the Mets, they're in trouble. Okay, so the overall almost 65 runs, but this is a team that should have won about 86 games. They won 82. So it's within the ballpark. The 82 is not shocking. When you see their offense as terrible as it was during the season, you can understand why they only won 82 games. Oakland, very interesting. I think this team is on the improve very much. They had one double ditch, but he's the DH, Brent Rooker. But this is the kid I'm looking at, Zach Geloff. He almost made it double digits on only half a season. This kid looks like he's really good. And he's going to be here for the full season. And they have these 4 double-digit negatives. A lot of them will be gone. At least Kemp certainly has already been gone. So it's a minus 69 runs on the offensive side. But people are coming along on that team. As far as the pitching goes, again, it's only relief pitchers at the top. All relief pitchers at the top, with 3 of them in the premier study. As far as the double negative, Kyle Muller. As you can see, all their starting pitchers are like Washington, pretty much down here at the bottom, in the terrible area. So minus 70. It won't take much to improve that pitching staff, getting better some starting pitching. So that's this is a 53 win team that won 50, right? In the it's their record was about right. But I can see things that are looking up for them. Seattle. Seattle is got the three players in well up into double digit, led by Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, and J.P. Crawford. Crawford had a tremendous year. Double digit negative, Ty France. He had a simply awful season last year. But overall, the offense is very good, almost 47 runs to the offense. Plus, go to the pitching staff. Only one double-digit plus is George Kirby. Justin Topa out of the bullpen almost made it. They had 5 pitchers in the premier study. They had one double-digit negative in Chris Flexen. But the pitching staff overall is slightly plus. So this team should have been about a 91, 92 win team. 88 wins, it's pretty close in the ball, right in the, pretty right. 91 win team out, I think. Yeah, 91, maybe 92. Tampa Bay, always, no money, but always finds the players, always knows how to win games. You have teams that spend money after money. You see the Angels, and they never get to 500. Here, Tampa, they get a star pitcher, they can't keep them. Tar hitter, they can't keep. They let them go, and they still win. They always win. It's a wonderful story of intelligence. There are 4 players in the double digits, and 4 others, if not 5, almost double digits. Look at that. You have an entire lineup in nothing but double digit, good hitting. It's just tremendous. And the offense overall is that that is phenomenal. 89 runs plus to the offense. Tremendous offensive team. And you go over to the pitching staff. 1 pitcher in the double digits, Zach Eflin. 2 others, if not 3, fairly close, but those are injured pitchers, Armstrong and Rasmussen. But how many pitchers are in the premier group that made the premier group? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 pitchers were in the premier group study. So they can throw pitcher after pitcher after pitcher that is quality. And then a whole slew more that were plus. Yeah. They had 1 super negative. Taj Bradley was really bad. Okay, but look at that. So they're plus 24 on pitching. This could be a 102 win team. They won 99. So it's right there. They could, if they were going to go in a different direction, then they would win. They were qualified to win even more, 102 wins, maybe even 103. That's how good a team they have put together there. Texas, remember Texas? They only had 90 wins. Baltimore had 101. They were a wild card team. Yet when they went into Baltimore, they swept Baltimore, and you'll see why here. In their double digits, they have 3 very strong double digit hitters, 4th almost in there, and overall offense 62 runs to the plus, over 62.5 runs to the plus. An excellent defensive team as well, and we as part of that 62 runs, we go to the pitching staff. 1 double digit and Nathan Ivaldi. John Gray and Will Smith very close. Even Clerk not far off. No, in fact, all these, you have 8 pitchers in the premier study. 8 pitchers, not a single double-digit bad pitcher. By the way, for the first time since I've been doing the numbers, first time Colorado wasn't the best hitting ballpark in baseball. It was Texas this year. Texas, so there was a lot of illusion. The best hitting ballpark in baseball last year was Texas. I guess they were I guess they had a lot of hot weather. Anyways, their pitching was plus 40. So this is 102. This was a 101, maybe 102 win team. Really, this was a team that should have won 101, maybe even 102 games, so based on what they actually were doing, performing. So they essentially, while Baltimore was the 101 official winning team, and then the 90, really this is the 101 win team facing Baltimore, which was the 91 win team. Okay, and so it was based on this, that is no surprise that Texas blew out Baltimore. And by the way, I think they may be better this year, by far. Why? Because Evan Carter, who was only there for 62 at-bats, and of course is in the plus, he's going to be there all year, and they have brought up a kid who may be better than Evan Carter, and Wyatt Langford. Watch out for this kid. He looks like the real deal. So they're essentially adding Carter and Langford this year to what they had last year in the regular season. So that's a good sign for Texas coming this year. Toronto, 3 double-digit hitters, and one of it, the top one, not been signed yet. Brandon Belt, plus 14 runs. He's sitting out there. Nobody signed him. I'm sure some team can use a hitter. I don't know who you might be, but some team can use a hitter. And this guy, you look at his batting, he's a 250 hitter. So that is the guy. He hits for power. He's on base all the time. He's a solid bat, even if you only use him as a part-time player. Doesn't matter. There's no business for him being unsigned thus far. The kid David Schneider came up in the park and just ripped everything apart. I'd like to see what he can do. The other one, Matt Chapman, is now with San Francisco. That's very good, but that's not going to help. That's not going to solve all of San Francisco's problems with 10 runs to the good. And there are only one double negative. Unfortunately, he's picked up by Philadelphia. Whit Merrifield at minus 11, which is kind of in line with where he's been for the last couple of years. So let's see if he can bounce back to where he was when he first came up. But he's been on a downward slide badly for the last 3 years. So we'll just have to see how he does with Philadelphia. Overall, 32 runs to the plus for Toronto on the offensive side. Now we go to the pitcher side. One double-digit plus is Gaussman, just barely, and 4 others in the premier study. One double-digit negative was Manoah, who up until this year was great. This year, he was just terrible. Overall, their pitching was pretty much average, just less than a run below normal. So between the two, this is a team that should have won 87, 88 games. They won 89. So it's right on the mark. Absolutely dead on the mark. Okay, now we can go to the into that, I've covered all 30 teams. We'll now go to the screen for the hitters. Okay, so for the hitters and the pitchers. Let me just, if I can, okay. The screen is being recorded, it's covering over the top. Okay, on the left side, it shows the position, first base. The green is the premier. You have 30 teams, only 15 players can be in the premier group, which is the green. But you still have 15 starters that are qualified to be major leaguers, and that's the yellow. And then you have the dross, the players here who don't belong. Okay, so these are your 30 players in the ratings, and in order to be on the left side here, you need to have accumulated made 350 outs over the 3 seasons. Here is less certainty in terms of the numbers because it's based on 200 outs produced as a hitter on this side. In addition, to make the screen, you need to have 30 outs in the previous season. So even if you had more than 500 plate appearances, outs over the 3 years, you're not going to make it here unless you had 30 outs in last season. You had to have at least that minimum in the previous season. What you have is my study, the third part is over here. And this is over 3 years. So that Goldschmidt, who is the #1 rated first baseman here, which shows his bats right, he's 36, St. Louis. This is the number of outs over the 3 years that he gave up, 1,290 outs. His RPO, runs per out, 2.247. This column is his defense. He was +2 on defense. And there's no adjustment for age. So the 247 plus the 2, his overall rating is 249. Okay. So when I look at Goldschmidt over here, over the 3 years, 540 plate appearances against those premier pitchers. 540 plate appearances. His OPS, I wasn't going to do a run on every single player in this thing. I wanted to show something that everybody understands, OPS. You can see what they did. It's very easy to understand. His OPS against the top pitchers over the 3 years, over those 540 plate appearances, his OPS is 731. Okay, to give you an idea of first baseman, Rhys Hoskins in his first 2 years, if I remember, he was like 843. 843 OPS against top pitchers. So that's why I say he may win one of the top 5 hitters against top pitchers in the game. And so you missed him last year in the playoffs. You could have made it the World Series if you had him, but you also missing him now. So Goldschmidt. So when you look right down here, you'll see Matt Olson, who Atlanta gave up Freddie Freeman to get Olson, right? Look at Olson again. I noticed in those trades, both for their catchers and so on, that Atlanta picked up the player who's better against premier pitching. And so I think I think they do a similar study. So 833 is a tremendous OPS when you're facing only the top pitchers. And that's in 526 plate appearances. That's not a mistake. Okay. Okay. So when you look at it here, we look at Baltimore, Ryan Mountcastle, right here. Hit him against the premier pitchers, 597. So when you come to the playoffs, you're facing only almost the premier pitchers. See, he fattened up during the year on the bad pitchers, but 426 plate appearances against the top pitchers, his OPS 597. That's not good, especially for first baseman. And so and he doesn't make up for it. Like Noda makes up for it because in OPS does not handle walks properly. So this is actually a little bit. It'll still be down, but it won't be like this because he's a walking man. He walks tremendously, and so that'll be. But Mountcastle, I'm sorry, that's not a first baseman that's going to help you in the playoffs. So when you look at that, you can see who, who's good, who's not in the critical situation. And Philadelphia is not up there because Reese Hoskins is not here. Okay, I list all the players who had their majority of the playing at this base. So coming season, I know that he's going to be playing first base, a great hitter. Anyways, that's what when you look at the team for the playoffs, this is really key. And you see a massive drop off, especially amongst the poorer hitters. The poorer hitters really can't hit the good pitching, generally speaking, although there are exceptions, and you'll see them here. You'll see players down here who actually hit better than some of the players up here in terms of hitting the good pitching. Now we go to second base. We go to second base. Top player, of course, Jose Altuve. Just a phenomenal player. But look who's 3 and 4. Edward Julian, pointed out from Minnesota, and Zach Geloff from Oakland. Those two kids came up. This is their performance that year was the third and fourth best players in the game at their position. And look what Geloff did against good pitching. He only faced 82 of them, 867, meaning this might be misleading. He might be better than that. If you can hit, he likely hit premier hit pitchers better than he hit regular pitchers, which means he's likely to actually improve these numbers. Okay. Altuve almost made it to 800 against the top pitchers. Okay, so we go down. Let's see, Baltimore. Well, you don't worry about Wong. We have to wait to see if he can rebound from his awful season. But Baltimore has. What does Baltimore have? The Baltimore doesn't have anything that's other than one. Where? Okay, let's move it on. I know I'm missing somewhere here. Okay, we go to third base. Austin Riley on top. Baltimore has Gunnar Henderson right here. But he's a 658, which is solid. It's a very solid against top pitching, but it's lower than most of the others at his level. But the guy right under him, Rafael Devers, assassinated good pitching. But then again, other guys, you can see who dropped off, who did well, who does well, and who is not so good in terms of top pitching, facing top pitching. If it's in the yellow down here, that's when it's in the 400s or below of OPS. So Taylor Walls, that infielder for Tampa Bay, is he's in there for defense only. Now, see, okay. Okay, in Philadelphia, Sosa, he just makes it into the qualified start, but only 513 against premier pitchers. Can't hit them at all. Now, Alec Bohm, that is a drag on the team. He does hit the premier pitcher decently at 620, but overall, his performance over 3 years has been underwhelming, to say the least. Underwhelming. Doesn't even qualify to be a starter at this point, but he will be this year. You got better hope that at his age, 27, that he can launch, get a big improvement. Now we go to shortstop, and this is sad. The number 1 rated shortstop in the major leagues is just out for the season, looks for most of the season. Matt McClain came up there and just tore it up, and he was 792 against premier pitching, so it wasn't an illusion. He hit everybody. But Trey Turner is number 4, but against premier pitching, 593. 593. He drops. He's the only player in the top group that is below 600 against the top pitching. And okay. And in terms of anybody else that's interested, Jorge Mateo also down here at the in the bench area, not for Baltimore. He's a hole in their lineup. Now for left field, of course, Juan Soto is on top, but number 2 is Nolan Jones, that I pointed out to you. Juan Soto against premier, 810. He doesn't drop off much against premier pitchers. He hits them. Nolan Jones against premier, 759. Then you have Corbin Carroll. Kyle Schwarber is number 4. He's 660 against premier, but I think he walks a lot, so that could be adjusted up a little bit. Next one is the one from Minnesota I told you about, Matt Wallner at 798. And somebody that they don't talk about that much from Houston. He's the next guy, and he's at 785 against good premier pitchers. So this is really, really, really good performances. Stone Garrett, he's not going to be available for Washington until maybe April, but he's at 780 against premier pitchers. He looks like a real hitter. Okay. Now, Baltimore, Austin Hayes, 595 versus top pitchers. I should mention, this guy's not going to probably start. He's not in the premier group. He's in the qualified starter for Cincinnati. Maybe with their injuries there he might. But what he did against premier pitchers, 828. So he's likely to be better than that, than the figure I have here. Because if you can hit the good pitchers, you should hit the others easily. And he really tore into the good pitching. Okay. No. Okay. Okay. Now we go to center field. Mike Trout on top easily. He just injured so much. And Brandon Nimmo, number 2. Julio Rodriguez, number 3. Who would have thought it? Brandon Nimmo, even higher rated than Julio Rodriguez. People just, and the Mets fans, they do not know what they have. I mean, because he's a leadoff hitter, you don't see it. You don't see it. He's not the one driving in all the runs. But who's being driven in is Nimmo. He sets up that lineup. And against, look what Trout does against the premiers. 821 against the premier pitchers. Okay. Cedric Mullins actually does well against the premier. He's at 725. It's not up there with the others, but that's very good against the premier pitchers. Brandon Marsh is a premier player, but over the 3 years against the premier pitchers, he's just 579. He's been 579 against the premier pitcher. So you could take it either way. And he's young, he can improve, but that's what he's done. Okay. I think Sam Hilliard was just released by Colorado. He's a 369 against him. Yeah, I think that's one of the worst in the major leagues when facing a premier pitcher. But Mike Tauchman had a very nice season last year, even though he's not one of the premier players. But against premier pitchers, he was the exception in this group with a 705 against premier pitchers. Okay. Go to right field. Anybody I missed? No, I don't think I missed it. Right field. Okay, Aaron Judge, number 1. Against premier pitchers, almost 900. He hit home over the 3 years with 483 plate appearances, hit almost 900 OPS against the best pitchers in baseball. With a tremendous. Mookie Betts, not far behind, at 853 OPS against 511 of the plate appearances for the top pitchers. And then Acuna, 806 against the top pitchers. So, and you look at Tatis, 845 against the top pitchers. So you see them stop the stickouts. Here's somebody who was an all-star and is and had a great year, and his numbers put him in the premier group. But he did that against bad pitching almost completely. Against good pitching, 203 plate appearances, 495. So whenever he faced the good pitchers, top pitchers, he was lost. Now, so you can see real differences when facing top pitchers. It can be enormous. This is Kerry Carpenter. I think that's right. I think that's Kerry. Okay, 769. Okay, let's look to Anthony Santander, starter. He was in double digits this year plus as a plus. 513. Let's see, 7. Yes, 540, 513 against top pitching. Can't hit top pitching. So when he comes to facing Texas in that playoffs, you have the Mountcastle at first, who can't hit top pitching, and you have Santander, 2 of the guys in your middle in your lineup can't hit top pitching. Okay. Nelson Velasquez has a nice year last year, but against top pitching, he was under 500. Under 500. So I don't know, what Kansas City can expect from him. Okay. Here's Nick Castellanos. Okay. Hit a good, decent pitching, premier pitching at 657, which is good for this group. It's not great, but it's very good. It's actually very good especially for this group. 657. But he's down here. He only beats out 4 players to keep him from being in the blue. And the Yankees go and sign Alex Verdugo. And as I told you last year, they were in trouble last year, starting last year, and I told you about it. Almost none of their players can hit good pitching. And look at Verdugo, 574. They just added another guy under 600 to hit against good pitching. So yes, they added Soto, so they have that two good guys plus the second baseman, but the rest of the team can't hit good pitching. So it's you know, that's a big problem. And now we move to the DH position. Number one is Shohei Ohtani. Surprise, surprise. 784 against top pitching. But Yordan Alvarez, 804 against good pitching. And Byron Buxton, 805 versus top pitching. Okay. So Bryce Harper will probably be playing first base this year. It was 711 against, very good, 711 versus top pitching. And here's Brandon Belt, who's not signed yet, 742 versus top pitching. So, you know, somebody's going to pick him up. Somebody needs to. Every year he does the same thing. He's not flashy. He's not a guy who is, you know, just takes the team on his back and carry. He's just good. And I don't see why he's not been signed. And there's no seeking to sign him. Doesn't seem to be strong ones. Okay. And we got down here. And that's everybody, I believe. Yes. The only one that's interesting, Eloy Jimenez is in the qualified starter, but and he's 765 against top pitching. So it looks like if he's healthy, that should be improvement. Whereas Giancarlo Stanton, over the 3 years and 391 at-bats, 549 versus premier pitching. Really, really, really terrible. And so this is that's the hitters. Now we go to the catcher. The hitters too. Number one catcher in Major League Baseball, Adley Rutschman of Baltimore, is the overall number one. But in his hitting against premiers, 592 against premier pitchers. Whereas T.A.T. Realmuto, number three, against premier pitchers, 724. Yainer Diaz, who I told you just took over from Houston and was tremendous, and against top pitching, only 91 paid pitcher, 779. So he showed it's no fluke because he wasn't getting hits off a lousy pitching. He was hitting good pitchers. So, but a lot of blue in the catcher area against. So it's rare to have hitters who can hit good pitching, like Will Smith, 750 against that. Gabe Moreno is not a great hitter because most of his defensive plus 24 in defense, but against good pitching, 719. So when it came to the playoffs, even though his numbers shouldn't have been that great, he can hit good pitching. And so he did not have a fall off when where other hitters would have for Arizona in the playoffs. Let's see. Now, there's James McCann, as you can see way down there. Cam Gallagher, next to worst. Pitching. Of course, the first guy he's the best, but he never pitches. Jacob deGrom. Next best guy, Baltimore acquired tremendous. Actually, of the non-injured pitcher, he's the best pitcher in baseball. Corbin Burns for Baltimore. That's quite an acquisition. He is the real deal. Okay. Okay. Zach Wheeler, right here, number 7 in the major leagues. You have Baltimore, John Means. People don't really, he's like Stroman. Nobody realizes just how good he is. He's a tremendous pitcher. I do expect, I don't understand why the Mets sent out Lucchesi. Really don't. Maybe they figured they weren't going to use him in the first few weeks, so they'll bring him back up when they need a full rotation. Maybe that's it. And they want to keep him going. But he came up his last couple of years. Whenever he's pitched fabulously. Okay. The guys. Here's Arenona. So what this is split up here. Since you have 75, you have 150 pitchers in the major leagues who are qualified to start, 5 for each team. And same way the relievers, 5 for each team. So only the top 75 can be premier. So I group those into groups of 30. So the top 30 are number 1 starters. This is the top half. The first 15 are the top half of the number 1. This is the bottom half of the number 1 pitchers in here. Arenona at this point is the top of the number 2 starters, with Reese Olson, who's the 5th starter for Detroit, being next. This kid, yeah. You have Stroman, number 4 in this premier number 2 starter. You have Ranger Suarez here, right here with Philadelphia, and very high up in the number 2 starters. Kyle Bradish also in that grouping. I'm focusing on obviously on Philadelphia and Baltimore because of who I'm speaking to. Okay. Then you have lower in the second half of the number 2 stars, you have Taijuan Walker. You have Tyler Wells in the number 3 starter. Now what happens is, this is where 75 ends, because this number 1 and number 2, that's the first 60 highest rated. This is 75, so that's the middle line. So everybody in the yellow is qualified starter, but they're not in the premier group. So Spencer Turnbull is in the premier group, but barely, but he's in the premier group. Okay, in the bottom half, this number 3 starters, you have Christian Sanchez. He's a number 3 starter. You have Cole Irvin, who's also a number 3 starter. You have Grayson Rodriguez. He's a number in the upper half of the number 5 starters. And the rest are starters that aren't qualified to be starting pitchers, based on their performance anyways. And you have guys like Jack Flaherty in here for Detroit. They have good, and they set Manning down. They're hoping that Flaherty can return to his previous ability, but based on what he's done for the last 3 years, it's unlikely. And they'll have to bring Matt Manning up, who is qualified, who is a good pitcher. Okay, that's the starters. Now we go to the relievers. Top reliever in baseball, Evan Phillips of the Dodgers, followed by Emmanuel Clase of Cleveland. Unfortunately, Baltimore's Bautista is injured out, probably for the whole season. He's the 3rd best reliever in baseball. Devin Williams is injured as well. And the next highest is like number 5 or 6 on the in the bullpen for Detroit, Tyler Holton. That's how strong their bullpen is. Okay. The Bruce Dar, he's missing in the beginning of the season, also injured, but it should be back pretty soon. Jonathan Loaizaga is a tremendous pitcher, and so on. Roberto, I don't know why there was any controversy over him being the closer for San Diego. And there was prior to the season. I was wondering why, but immediately the very first save that San Diego got, Suarez got it when in that second game in Korea. He should be. And here's Hunter Harvey for Washington. He's a premier, a top half of the premier closers. He should be the closer for Washington. Okay. With the of course, Detroit has plenty of pitchers up here. Jason Foley is also a #1 closer in this bottom half of it. Okay, of the Detroit close, and they have a #2 and Andrew Chafin. I mean, the bullpen is really strong for them. Okay. Of Baltimore, Brian Baker is in the #1 group based on his performances. So he, although they have lost Batista, they do have some. They still have a bullpen. Rest of the new #2s you see here. Jose Alvarado is a #2. That's your best reliever, and it's not you do not have a #1. You have a bottom half of the #2, and near the bottom, low, almost to the bottom of the #2. But he's a good reliever, but he's, as I show you, teams that aren't focused on the bullpen as being just as important as the starting pitching are destined to lose a lot of games they shouldn't. You need to focus in on the bullpen at least as much as the starting pitching. And it's not, I'm not talking about, oh, well, you have a closer and a setup man. No, you need 5 quality relievers, just like you need 5 quality starters. It's depth that counts. You need to throw one after the other like Tampa Bay does. Okay, here's another one, Will Vest for Detroit. Okay, Baltimore has Daniel Colomb in the RP3 grouping, below in the upper half of the RP3, and Sionel Perez also in the upper part of the RP3s. The rest are qualified relievers. They're good for your team because they're qualified to be, but they're not the ones you depend on because they're not premier relievers. And so you have Sir Anthony. He was great for a little while, but on very small data. Once he got a little bit more data on him, he's dropped in here. He's got lightning stuff, but this is what he's done. He's in the top, he's in the bottom half of the #3 relievers. He's qualified to be a reliever in the major league squad. But the depth I'm talking about is up higher. You have Baltimore's Craig Kimbrell. He's a #4 reliever. Baltimore has Yenier Cano, who is so much better than him. I don't see him lasting the whole season as their closer. Well, who knows? You never know. He can have a rebirth at 35 years old. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You have Matt Strom, #4 reliever. Jacob Webb as a #4. Gregory Soto is a #5. Now, Yennier Cano is listed #5. However, Last year, he was lights out. So when I was looking at last year's numbers, I'm thinking that with Craig Kimball, I would go by this if it wasn't for the fact that if Bautista was there, I wouldn't pay much attention to Cano's last year, because I'm taking the 3-year average. But because Bautista isn't there, and Kimbrell is, who's very doubtful, and Cano had a great season last year, I, I, I'm I would watch that carefully. Okay, Hoffman is RP5, and everybody else is in the blue, and that covers everything. Do we have questions?
Thanks, Mike. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Like, we can't
Mike,
hear you.
Mike, I will start off. The Phillies bullpen, according to one news source, was recently ranked as the top bullpen in baseball.
Ha!
Your thoughts?
My thoughts was just what I said. Laughter. I mean, where do they come up with that?
I didn't even bother to read the article, to be honest. I don't necessarily agree with that, that they are the top bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, who are you looking at? I mean, well, anyways, I said enough on it. Next.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is Mike Walsh.
Yes.
On the spreadsheet that you were showing earlier, I was just curious, like, do you have a document or a website or something where you describe, how you calculate each of these columns?
Well, I did put out a book for several years,
Oh, okay.
and in it has entire chapter.
Okay.
Now, a few things have changed since then, but they're not major. Okay. A few
Okay.
things have changed to make it even better, but overall, it's what I do. And each of the so if you got the most recent one, I think it was the 93 book, or I think that was the last one. It'll have you read that, it'll have, I can't summarize it here. It's long. It goes into detail on it. Just understand everything isn't in there. I have other stuff which you can't, that I've added since, but it's those they're technical.
Yeah, but if I look at the most recent edition of your book, it would explain the
In
different
detail,
stats.
yes,
Okay,
in detail.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is Ed Denta.
Yes.
I am amazed at your stamina, and I'm very interested in what you've done here. I have 3 questions. Hopefully they're short answers, and I'll pause after each question to see if somebody else has a question. But
Yeah.
my first question is, when you're comparing the teams and trying to rationalize their actual number of wins against the expected wins, did you look at all at the team's performance and say 1-run and 2-run games to see if,
Well, that's more the relief. If you're strong, if you have a strong bullpen, you should be strong in that area. No, I don't want to fiddle with it because
Okay.
once you fiddle with it, you destroyed your analysis.
Yeah.
The fact is that I could do a separate study on that. That's why I said when I said about the relievers, it's my impression. I haven't done a study on it, but it's my impression from what I've seen over the years that so many teams underperform because they can't hold a lead. The guys come in from the bullpen and they can't hold a lead. And you watch teams like Tampa Bay and others who rely on the bullpen, and they do well.
Well, I am a Tampa Bay Ray fan, so I appreciate all your good stuff about Tampa Bay, but we were horrible last year in 1-run games.
Yeah, one-run
And,
games
you know,
are
you wouldn't
chance.
expect that with our bullpen.
I know, but one-run games are a chance. I think Bill James did a study of that way back in the 80s, which he showed that in one-run games, it's like great teams still play just 500 ball in one-run games.
Mhm.
The difference between the great teams and the bad teams is the games in which you win by a lot of runs. That's what differentiates the great teams from the regular teams. The one-run games are just a mush. They're like 50-50 everywhere, pretty much.
Okay. Well, I'll ask my second question unless somebody else wants to jump in there with one of theirs. No? My second question is, I noticed on the data you pulled for the pitchers, it didn't say anything about runs given up or earned runs. Why is that?
Because that's team dependent. It's dependent on the team. I did a study, for instance. I think it was the '93 Mets, where I was picking. I think that was the year that Philadelphia won, and I picked Philadelphia to win the division, to win the league that year. And I was laughing. Everyone was picking the Mets, and I was laughing because the Mets had no defense. They actually, during the season, people started to laugh at them as going into the field without a glove. And but when I rated what's his name, their top pitcher that year, and he had like an over 5 ERA, and I told Dan Duquette, we were in Montreal at that time, before we moved over to Boston, and I said, sign him. He pitched his normal all-star performance as every year. No, but he's a pitcher that puts the ball in play, and nobody could field it on that Mets team. So so the bidding was just between us and Boston for him. He goes to Boston and he has a great season. Okay, but the point is that on your ERA is in a big way dependent on the defense that's behind you. If your outfield can't catch anything, there's a lot of doubles and triples going on out there. You know, defense is critical for a pitcher, and so you need to evaluate the player himself. The ERA is nice; it gives you a good idea, but it's also, if you're pitching in Colorado, that's doesn't very indicative of what you're going to be. And if you're pitching in San Francisco, a great pitcher's ballpark, or Oakland, that's going to improve your numbers. I take all that out. Not only do I take it out each year for each stadium, as I indicated, first time ever, Texas was the best hitting stadium, but that has to go into evaluating every pitcher. And what I do is I actually rate the players, the teams, from 1900 on. And so I have to make my numbers equivalent for every year. So I have a standard so that if you have a hitter in 1925 have a certain number of runs, those runs are going to be equivalent to the runs that you have here. So I balance the numbers on the year, the stadium, and the league, everything, so that, and you have to take into account the defense behind the pitcher as well in the pitcher's rating.
Okay. Last question is, I really enjoyed your analysis where you had the how the top hitters performed against the top pitchers.
Yeah.
Have you also analyzed, and just didn't have time to present it here, how the top pitchers perform, or pitchers' performance against the top hitters?
I didn't think that was important because that's not how a game plays. With the pitchers, they have to face the whole lineup in a postseason thing.
Right.
But when the pitchers are facing the hitters are everywhere. It's a different situation. it's somewhat true that, yes, you're generally facing a better hitting team. But look at the Yankees. Why did I start to do this study last year? Because the prior year, the Yankees were a powerful hitting team. They went to the playoffs and they stunk. They absolutely stunk. And I said, how could this be? My numbers showed that they should have hit. And then when I did it, every freaking Yankee hitter, other than Mr. Aaron Judge, who's great against them, they stunk against good pitching. I mean, they have a catcher. I don't know if they're going to wake up. Jose Trevino. His number, you know what it is against good pitching? I think it's under 400. It's that bad. Okay. The kid, Austin Wells, he should be starting. He's an actual player. Austin Wells, when he's facing bad pitching, he's going to get all his hits. But if he faces any good pitch, he goes up there with no bat. Jose Trevino. So yet he made the All-Star team once. Listen, the Yankees have a problem, and they don't understand. I literally, the last 2 years, I sent in a letter to the GM, the Yankee GM each time. Would you like to invite me? I think I know something to help you in terms. I give my background and everything like that. You know, I didn't hear back at all. I mean, they know everything. Obviously, they know it all. You know, and yet they put together a team that, when it comes to the playoffs, they got 2 hitters, and add Gleyber Torres into it. This is sad, and they go out and trade for players, and they don't. The players they trade for, unlike Atlanta, are players that can't hit good pitch. So they clearly have a problem in the front office. I guess they're afraid to bring in somebody who knows more than them. That's what bad leadership is, afraid of anybody who knows more than them. Good leadership brings in people that know more than them. You know, they're not afraid of somebody who has knowledge.
Thank you, Mike. I enjoyed your analysis.
Thank you for enjoying it.
So this is Mike Walsh again. I have another question for you. When you showed the listing of the Phillies from 2023, the third baseman, what's his name?
Bohm?
Bohm was all the way at the bottom with a -10.
Yes.
And I was kind of surprised about that. What is driving his number down?
Well, I think it's everything. Let me go to that screen first, so we're on the same page. Okay, go down to third base. Alec Bohm. Okay.
I was talking about the other spreadsheet, actually.
Okay, I'll get to that in a moment. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So he's slightly below average on defense. So hitting is not that great at 139, and a -4 on defense. He adds 2 points because he's young, and he should improve. But okay, so let's go to the other one. Back to here to Philadelphia. Okay, let's go Control G 5204. Where am I? Yeah, okay. I have to go to the National League. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to put the A in. Okay. Okay, now we go down to Philadelphia. You have to understand, I have all the teams from 1900 on, so I can't just jump around too easily.
Yeah.
So if you want to ask about Philadelphia in 1973, I can actually show you what your strengths were, both offensive, pitching, and so on.
Wow.
Name your need. 1937, you want that? I'll show it to you. Okay. Okay, Philadelphia. Alec Bohm, dead last.
Yeah.
His offense, -6.01 runs. Defense, -2.63 runs.
Yeah. I can understand the defense. The offense surprises me.
Well, you're looking at his batting average.
yeah, and
See,
he's had
batting
94.
average don't mean anything.
Right,
In my books, I made that. All I care about is, did you make it to first base?
Uh-huh.
Did you make it to second base? Where did you go? Are you sitting back? I showed where players who hit over 300 were terrible hitters because they never make first base, because maybe they walked four times in the whole year. And you're making tons of outs. He made 429 outs. His official is 327, but it can be even worse on mine, because I figured it differently. There's and let me say to you, because he has 20 home runs. Oh, he had 20 home runs. On base percentage. What's the importance of on base? It's to set up runs for the next guy coming up in the lineup, right? Right. Home runs are listed as plus an on base percentage. How many guys are on base after you hit a home run?
No.
None. How many people who were on base when you hit the home run are now on base? None. Okay, so that's improperly done. You have to, I have to account for all outs, all changes of position and so on. So I can design in my books you'll see I try to design lineups to fit that proportion, so that you have the maximum number of players on the base path in front of the players who are the best to drive in those runs. So what you have here is a player who does not walk that much. He has 42 walks, 611. That's low.
Yeah.
Okay. He has hit 20 home runs. He has a lot of RBIs. Oh yeah, that looks good. But the lineup after him is getting killed. The next guy up doesn't have anybody to knock in. I've seen MVPs who got MVPs, and I wrote in the book. And they killed their lineups, and they wonder why that MVP was on a last place team, and he was MVP. And you'll see that, and I wrote about that in my books. You can't. The one I did a talk at the St. Louis Sabre conference in the mid '90s. I think it was maybe '97. I don't remember. Whenever it was in St. Louis at that time, and I did it saying, I showed them charts how there is only one item in all these stats that is the most indicative of predicting run scoring, and it's walks. It's on base. Actually, it's on base. It's our actual on base percentage with all my adjustments and so on. Once you do that, I don't care what the league is, what variant you use, how you adjust it. Runs follow on base ability, because I don't care how many home runs you hit as a team. If nobody's on base, you're not scoring runs. You need the bases. The more bases, runners on base, it's fantastic for a team. On the other hand, people don't realize how bad a double play is. Double play, and Mr. Bohm hit into 23 of them, almost doubled anybody else.
Right.
It's a negative home run, because what is happening when you hit in the double play? You have men on base. You either have nobody out or one out. That's it. Men. That's the formula for big inning.
Yeah.
So a double play in that situation is a negative home run. He hit 20 home runs. He hit into 23 double plays. That's 23. He made 2 outs. So that's an extra out. These Baseball Reference may only refer to it as 1 out. I refer to it as 2 outs, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's 2. No, it's even worse than that. It's 2 outs, and it's removing a runner that got on base. So it does 3 things. It creates 2 outs, and it stops a rally because it takes a guy off the bases. It's a negative home run, and it's a really disastrous play for any team. The most of it, why I use RPO instead of RPA is because there's only 27 outs in a game, whereas plate appearances can vary. but there's only 27. They're the most precious item in any baseball game. You cannot afford to lose outs. Giving away an out is critical. So, so that is an important reason why foam is down there.
Yeah, okay.
Look at comparison to Schwarber. That'll make your point too.
Four hitting only 4 double plays the whole season. The whole season. Okay, that's a big difference. And so you see, when you look at a player, you can't look at one number. You got to look at the whole thing and how is it work? How does it affect the team's run scoring? How does it affect the whole game? And then you can understand what's going on.
There's some excitement, Mike, in Philadelphia about Bryson Stott.
I agree.
Can
I
you
agree.
talk a bit about his rise?
Okay. If you remember last year, he came up during the season. His numbers weren't that great. It was actually quite poor. But remember, I pointed out during that discussion that he had great numbers versus the top pitchers because he was in the study. And he actually hit the top pitchers better than he did the poor pitchers. And I said, anybody who can hit the top pitchers should be able to hit the poor pitchers. So this year, Bryson Stott, right here, his plus 5 months. But because he had that first poor year, his overall 2-year average isn't as high. But what I predicted from last year came to pass. He's a good player, Bryson Stott. He's a good player. He's young, and he's in that period of improvement that you should expect. So yes, I like Mr. Stott. And if you look here, plus 3.90 offensively, plus 161 defensively. So overall 5.5 runs to the plus. And he's not at a right field where you have all your big hitters. Where in right field you have Acuna, Betts, Judge, you name them down the line. He is at a position where the hitters aren't that big. So he's a good player for the future. I like him. He will continue to improve, I think.
One of the surprises, I guess, best way to put it, that happened within the last week was the Phillies moved on from Jake Cave, which I don't think bothered many people, but
yes,
that allowed the club to keep Johan Rojas in the club. There was thought that he might start the year at AAA because of his hitting. He went from AA immediately to the majors last year.
right.
So, I mean, his defense, people think he might be able to win a platinum glove someday if he can stay in the majors.
Well, he was almost as good as Alec Thomas at 6.96, and that's on a partial at only 164 plate appearances.
Right.
Yes, at that rate, he's better than Alec. That is a phenomenal number on defense. Absolutely phenomenal. And the offense isn't that bad. I mean, that's why he's up here. 6.65 runs, in a quarter of the season. He would be up here if he would do that whole season that would Schwab. I don't think, it's not likely that he could do all that, but he's 22. Players who come up at a young age are players to watch. That's a significance. When you come up at a young age, you're playing against players older than you at every level. So that's the greatest indication. You could have great seasons, but if you're an older player, what does it mean, especially in the month? But if you're a younger player, but always playing against older players and you're outperforming them, that's somebody to watch.
It's as you mentioned earlier, batting average, highly overrated. I agree with this. But people still focus on batting average, home runs, RBIs, and in this case of Johan Rojas, people said, well, he hit 302 during the season. I think that's quite a bit of an anomaly. You look at his walks to strikeouts ratio, it's really pretty bad. His on base is only 342.
Right,
And in
right.
the postseason against premier pitching, we found that Johan Rojas, I think, only had 2 or 3 hits during the entire postseason, and they went to 3 rounds. So the question is, what kind of Johan Rojas will we get this season in Philadelphia? Will we get one that can hit a little bit with outstanding defense, or is it going to be enough to demote him to AAA for a little bit?
Well, let me take a, let me see if I can find what he did against, uh, at Premier Pitching. I have that here somewhere.
I don't think he ever hit 300 even in the minors.
No, he didn't.
No. So that
He kind of
300
lucked into it in the
Yeah.
regular season at
Right.
the major league level.
Johan Rojas. Okay, here's Johan Rojas. He only had 42 plate appearances against the Premier pitchers. It was his RPA was 538. Not great, but he's
Right.
just 22 years old. It wasn't terrible, but it's not good. Okay, so you have to see. But he's 22 years old.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not really that worried about it yet. I want to see more data. And when I see a young pitcher, a hitter, flash this type of ability, you want to see more. You definitely want to see more. It'll be up to Philadelphia whether because they have a center fielder who narrowly is in the premier group right now, Brandon Marsh, narrowly, but he's in that group. They can wait a little bit on him a little bit. But if this is real, if what we see is real, he's gotta play.
It's I tend to agree with the statements made by Dave Dombrowski and Larry Boa this past week, which was, if the concern in Philadelphia this season is that Johan Rojas can't hit, what's that say for the 7, 8 other hitters if that's the focus? They have 7 or 8 other hitters, as we see here, who should be able to hit at least decently, some remarkably. And if we're worrying about Johan Rojas's offense, well, then there's a problem.
Yes, absolutely.
I have another question if we have the time.
Well, plenty. I'm here forever. Next,
Mike,
next Tuesday.
It says in the email invitation for this that you're not a fan of the WAR ratings.
That is correct.
Okay, could you give us a little?
Okay, I've done this at the previous.
What you don't like about those numbers?
Yeah, I've done that in the previous meetings. There's 2 reasons. It's in the name, first of all. You notice I compare players in my position by position to players who are the starters at their position. Because all you want to know, how much better is my second baseman than their second baseman on the field at the same day? Or compares to replacement players. Who gives a shit? That's not what you're comparing to. That is nonsense. But that's not the worst thing. That's the least thing. What they do, every formula I've seen, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they've changed it recently, but every formula that I've gone through and seen has a poison pill in it, which is absolutely wrong. It destroys their formula. And that is they use a positional adjustment. In other words, if you're a DH, we drop you down, shortstop, we patch. That is utter nonsense. A DH, the average DH, the median DH, is equal on defense to the median shortstop, because the median shortstop is a 0 on defense when compared to other starting shortstops. And the median DH is also a 0. In fact, all of them are 0s on defense, theoretically, because they don't take the field. The point is that you don't compare the shortstops to a DH. You compare shortstop to shortstops. You compare starting pitchers to starting pitchers. I have the relievers separated because it's a different position. You compare relievers to relievers. You compare starters to starters. You compare first baseman to first baseman. And only then can you give a plus or minus on them. So that when you look at Castellanos, he had this rebound season. He's plus 2.6 runs. When you compare him to the other players at his position, he's bad, even in his rebound year. So when you compare, but then on the opposite, on my thing, you can have catchers that are negatives on mine, but are premier catchers because so many catchers can't hit. So some of them with negatives will end up in the plus section as premier players because you compare what you compare is you want a player at that position who's better than a player who starts, not on the bench, who starts and you have to face at that position on the field that same day. That's what you're comparing to. Only who could care less about replacement players. Because if you have to put a replacement player in there, you're dead. You don't want to put a replacement player in there. That's one of the players from the blue area. You want to have all your team at minimum qualified starters, but at best, if you're going to contend, you're looking for a player who's going to be in the red area on the top 15. Okay. And you're willing to trade away a qualified starter to find that player who's going to put you in the red zone, not in the yellow or in the blue. So, because the people in the yellow are losing you runs, even though they're qualified starters, because when they face the other players who are the red, they're giving up runs, even though they're qualified as one of the 30 qualified starters for the 30 teams. If you're contending, you want the player that's in the top 15 because only them provide you plus runs versus the other team. Forget WAR, forget that positional adjustment that's in the formula, has no business in the formula and destroys the value of it's better than nothing. It's better than the old batting averages it's much better. But how you justify putting positional judgment in the formula itself is beyond me.
I see. Okay.
We have a comment here from Alec. Baseball Reference has WAA, wins against average, and winning percentage by player, which adjusts WAA by games played.
Well, William, but average league keeps in everybody. I don't want everybody in my comparison. I want to, if I'm comparing my player, it's not against the average, it's against the players who are qualified starters, period.
Any other questions this evening for Mike?
Yeah, Mike, this is Dennis. I have a question. So I'm not sure if I came in a little bit late, so I'm not sure if I missed this, but I'm looking at run values for the Phillies. And when you look at Schwarber and Marsh, you know, they do very well by that measure. But I'm not sure. So is that maximizing their potential based upon where they bat in the order? So there's been a lot of discussion about where Schwarber should bat. Should he be leadoff or down lower? And to me, there's not a lot of discussion about this, but I believe Brandon Marsh probably should have been pushed up in the lineup more often last year, especially, against right-handers. So when you look at the way your numbers came out, do you believe they can actually be better depending on how they would be placed in the lineup?
Okay. If you, for those who read my books, they'll know what my answer coming. I actually proposed lineups for each type of hitter in those books based on the formula, not what you see as the result there. That's just a quantity item. Mine was based on the quality of the at-bat, each at-bat, and split it up into two portions. For a portion, a number of runs produced for the rest of the lineup, how you set up the rest of the lineup. And the second half, how you drove in runs. So I showed you in those books exactly how to maximize the hitters who are the best for setting up runs in front of those with the best driving ability. So when you're talking about these numbers, and then this is just totals. This is a total, as you see, for Schwarber and Harper and for Marsh, 12.02 runs for hitting, and on defense, 0.39, slightly above average. And that's what gave the 12.41. But that does not break down his lineup ability. Okay, so in the RPA, I have him as a 137. That in my program, which I can't show you because it doesn't run under Windows. So I have a separate computer here. So that I have him as in the setup as 0.071, drive-in as 67, 0.067. So he's somewhat 0.066 rather. So it's 71 and 66. He's a little bit more a setup man than a drive-in man. Okay, so that would lead in your direction, but I would guarantee almost that Schwarber is your number one guy per setup. Absolutely, with his 126 walks. And so it is, to me, and you have Harper also. Look at the official OBP, which is these two guys up here. That's wrong, 343, because remember, he only answered to 4 double plays, and he's all, and these on base does not take into account a lot of stuff which should be taken into account. So, in any case, yes, Barsh is a little bit better on the setup than the drive-in, but I'll guarantee you Schwarber's way above that.
As in, Schwarber should be higher in the lineup.
Should be, he probably, hitting number one is probably his best spot.
I feel completely vindicated in all of my opinions at this point. I recently this week, or last week rather, I got into a discussion about somebody suggested that dropping Kyle Schwarber to the 6 hole would have been.
Are you kidding me?
And,
so you want to reduce his number of at bats?
And
yes,
let's
do that.
That's what I said. I said I found something from, I think it might have been Fangraphs, that said, you know, based on a 600 plate appearance season by the leadoff man, Schwarber in the 6 hole would lose approximately 75 at bats during the season. And for a hitter and a batter, let's say batter, not necessarily hitter, a batter of his prowess to be able to hit and walk, I think you want to give him the majority of the bats.
If he's going to lose 75 at bats, that's a huge percentage of the season.
Immense.
That's ridiculous.
Immense. Immense.
One last comment. I think we can blame the baseball cards from our youth for the lingering fascination with home runs, RBIs, and batting average.
Yeah, well, because they're all dependent on the team as well. The home runs, what's the value of a home run if your team can't put anybody on base in front of them? You know, because then it hits the RBIs. Your lineup is dependent on all 9 guys. All 9 guys have to fit together properly, and each hitter has double responsibility. It's not just to dive in runs. His equal responsibility is to set up the rest of the lineup to score runs in order to get on base, be on base for that bird. And if he's not on base for that, the rest of the lineup, well, he's hurting it. He's hurting the run scoring.
Any other questions this evening or comments? Well, if there are none, Mike, thanks again for doing the study and presenting it to us. It's always invigorating and interesting to see what you've come up with and what we saw this past season.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me on. It's always an honor every year to give this presentation to your Sabre group. I'm a member of it, so I should be proud of that. So I just wish more Sabre groups were available to watch. They would learn something. Other Sabre groups, and if they were from their team and I knew that they were there, I would focus on their team and explain what I could for their team. That would help them. So anyways, whatever service I can give you, that's why I'm here.
We appreciate it. And thanks everybody for joining in tonight on the rescheduled date.